It's the Sod Pod, brought to you by Grassland Agro. The Sod Pod. Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of the Sod Pod. In the last episode, we had a great conversation about the Teagasc Grass 10, and it was covered on numerous occasions. We're very proud sponsors of that. In this episode, we have a bit of controversy. David Corbett is not with us today. He has been dropped from the panel. He failed to show up to training on Sunday. We still have Sean McMahon, and we have John O'Loughlin, the stalwart, the corner forward, lack of mobility. But we have a substitution. The substitution is coming in. You might know him. He comes from Wexford.
Correct.
He comes from Campile.
Incorrect. Out to Campile Road, New Ross.
Same difference. His surname is Furlong. I know what you're all thinking now. No, it's not Taig. But, in fairness, we have Bernard Furlong, our Grassland Agro Consultant Vet. Bernard, how are you keeping?
Not too bad now, James.
Tell us about yourself, Bernard. What's your story?
Yeah, sure. I'm a vet there in New Ross in County Wexford. It's a 4-person practice covering, I suppose, the New Ross district and into South Kilkenny as well. Up as far probably as Mullinavad, Ennishteague area, and all around by hitting into Clonroach, Adamstown direction, and all the way down maybe as far as Feather-on-Sea and Carlow.
Tullogher Rossbarkin.
Yeah, prime area. We'll be going out there every day, please God.
Prime real estate.
I can't afford that Kilkenny district, you know, that kind of a property, John. I just can't afford it.
No, so you must be on serious money.
But for a 4-person practice, dairy country, obviously, you know, sucklers are going down the way and dairy is rising every day. We're dealing with dogs, cats, and then small bit of sheep, but predominantly it's dairy cows, you know. So graduated in 2015. Worked for, I think it was about 15 months or that, Kilkenny, for John Lynch. He was a very good employer for my first year out. Similar type practice, a 3-person practice as well. Learned a lot out of John. And now I'm working for a man called Joe Moffat. And there's myself and 3 other vets working with Joe. And we're getting on right well, yeah. Yeah, busy practice, busy days, but very enjoyable, you know.
Where did you graduate from?
So I went to college in UCD. I would have left Go Council College. Big shout out to the boys there.
Council.
That's it, boy. Left there in 2010. I went to UCD then from September 2010 all the way till May 2015. So 5 years is usually the going rate to become a vet. Thankfully, I didn't fail a year or anything like that. I was a very studious vet student, James, you know. Always on top of the game, you know. And went from there then. I went to Kilkenny and then on to Kilkenny.
That's big talk.
Yeah, well, correct. So yeah, that's my story now. I'm basically just working now, working in Ross and happy out, you know.
And on the side, you do a bit of Gaelic football. You're not a great hurler, but you do a bit of Gaelic football.
I classify myself as more of a hurling man than football man, you know.
Oh, I love it.
But
even after Bernard, where obviously Wexford were beaten by Dublin at home.
Look, can't win them all, John, can you? This is coming from a Clare man now. They won the All-Ireland in 2013.
Yeah, well listen, obviously Bernard, we won in 1997, which is one more All-Ireland since he won in 1996. We also won in 2013. So by my maths, we have 2 All-Irelands since you last won in 1996. Now listen, you can argue with that.
All I'd say, John, is it's a bit like grass, isn't it? Like, would you rather good quality grass or good quantity grass, you know? So the quality of the All-Ireland we won back in 96 was phenomenal, you know? Like, no one doesn't know who
you
won
a proxy All-Ireland there between 1995 and 97. Clare were on for the hat-trick, right? But what happened was, and listen, Liam Wolfe was obviously a Limerick man, and Donald Barrow was obviously a friend of the show and very influential within our own company, and they would widely accept that they robbed that All-Ireland of Clare. Now, because what happened, listen, I want to get in the ins and outs of it, but I'll have to. What happened was, right, I was only 6 years of age at the time.
You remember it well.
I was looking at the playing, as I said, James, before, but what happened was, right, we were odds-on favourites, right? We went down, we got a bit of a rude awakening, I would say. Came down to the last minute anyways, and Kerry, uncle of the great Keane Lynch, ran the length of field, had made 2 catches already and drove it over the bar after Hurley, right? So just completely exceptional stuff, like, you know, freaking nature stuff. But other than that, we were clean through for 3 in a row, and Wexford won a handy one. And that is a sad reality for any Wexford fan, but exactly what happened. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Falling
We were
on
at
deaf
the
ears.
crossroads.
Yeah, we've better songs. We've a better All-Ireland. Just that 96. Everyone knows Wexford won 96. Who won
Never
football in
be
96? No
forgotten.
one even knows. I think it was Meath, was it? Who cares?
I'd say one thing, any team that prides themselves on me calling yellow,
It's incorrect. It's actually gold. But anyway.
widely renowned as Yellow Bellies.
But the simple fact was,
But yellow, Jim, sorry, no, correct me if I'm wrong now, and I have been wrong before once.
That was earlier today, John.
But yellow is commonly referred to as cowardly. Like. Now, Jim, you're older than us, so you probably remember. You're probably alive.
Much
for those,
older.
for those westerns. You were probably he probably done his J1 below in one of those western movies with John Wayne. But that's correct, yeah.
yeah, so we'll just move on anyway.
Yeah.
What I'd like to know, like, it's absolutely fantastic to have you as a Grassland Agro Consultant Vet, but when it comes to cows, what are the things that you're seeing now? And obviously farmers moving the whole time, but what are you seeing now today? As a qualified vet, you're at your 7th season now.
Yeah, so I suppose probably in the last 2 years I've become very comfortable as a mixed practice vet in that I'm not worrying going out on farms now with whatever issue is thrown at me. I feel like I can deal with it as best as I can, you know. Prior to that, I probably would have been a little bit more on the nervous side. Certain issues might have got on top of me a bit more than they would now. You're still seeing your emergency cases. They can't be gotten rid of, you know. So you're going to get your calvings, your C-sections, your displaced stomach operations. You're still getting your E. coli mastitis, your milk fevers. They're irreplaceable. Like, no matter how good one's farming system may be at her level, you're going to get all those issues, you know. So I know the general perception is going forward that the large animal side of things, it's going to be predominantly a herd health kind of a view, and that the emergency setting is going to reduce significantly. I don't see that myself. I think as vets, we're going to have to provide that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year kind of service that we can't get away from it. You know, as much as and all as we'd like, it is quite draining on our lives. We have to provide that, you know. But obviously the herd health side of things is becoming more and more predominant year on year. You know, that is becoming more predominant, and I suppose there is a lot of aspects of that we can touch base with there now, like, you know.
Shawnee, you want to step in there now?
Yeah, so one of the questions that I would like to ask Bernard is like some farmers have started the breeding season.
Yeah.
And, you know, some farmers haven't, but like, what are the main problems that you see around this time of year, and what are we, like, as a farmer listening to the podcast, what are we looking out for, or what is some very simple messages that farmers could take home just to keep an eye out for this time of year?
Yeah, so the first thing that would crop to my mind would be we're into breeding season now, you know, so it's probably kicked off for a lot of guys in the last week or two, you know. The first thing you want to keep an eye out for is body condition scoring, you know. So at your breeding season, if you're body condition scoring your cows, which you really need to kind of do, and you need to get into the habit of doing it throughout the year, not just this time of the year, but for the 12 months of the year. At breeding, if you are measuring your cows at a body condition score from 1 to 5 being obese, 1 being very thin, you're looking at a body condition score of 2.75 at breeding. That's the optimum body condition score. So you're trying to get that body condition score so that when you are submitting those cows for AI, that they're at that level, you know. But probably more importantly, I suppose, is when they're at the calving period, is to do with the body condition score at that calving point as well. And you don't want the body condition score to drop any more than 0.5 of a degree from calving to breeding, you know. So if you have a high drop off of body condition score from calving to breeding, then we have an issue, you know. Then you're in severe negative energy balance. You're losing body condition, and it is going to be harder for those cows to get back in calf. So you want your body conditioning score at 2.75, but you also don't want to be the girls losing too much units of body condition with the time period from calving to breeding.
And just, we had a roadshow of events there with yourself, Bernard, going around across the country. We had a couple of cows up the chute, and you were just showing us where the three main points of the short rib, the ribs, and then the pin bones, just a couple of pointers to look out for in relation to body condition scoring. Talk us through maybe what to look out for, what areas of the animal we're looking at, and then I suppose you were talking us through the rumen and how it works and looking at rumen filling. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah, so I suppose you're when you're doing body condition scoring, the cow has to go up a crush. It's the only place you can actually handle the cow, put the hand on the cow. Visually, you can't really do body condition scoring. It's just not feasible. So visually, obviously, you look at the animal, but you have to put the hand on, and the first place you go to is the actual ribs of the cow. So I suppose if you're looking for that optimum body condition score of 2.75, you want a certain level of cover within those ribs. Then the second point we go to is what we colloquially call the short ribs, which really are the transverse processes of the spinal column. And again, you want a certain level of fat cover along those ribs as well. However, you don't want too much of a bony prominence either. And then the third place you want to go to is your pin bones as well. And again, you want a certain amount of cover, not too much, not too little. It is quite hard to say, showing you hands on,
Big question now, right? You're talking about body condition score. Obviously, listen, myself and yourself have the full license, but
incorrect.
Our main man here beside us, Sean, has only on the provision. Did he pass?
Yeah, no, I thought Sean was quite good.
There you go.
You're going to give him an end plate then. He's moving the L to the
They do
end.
2 years on.
Yeah, I like Shawnee. I think he's a good guy, I wouldn't be...
I think he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake, he'll play
But
it
he's
on.
fairly atrocious at BCS. Everyone understands that.
But I'm going to ask you a question now, right? We were there, and I suppose for me, one of the big things is that it's not the average of the cows, it's the range. And there's going to be cows that are going to be under and cows going to be over. And something that you said that really struck for me, listen, we all know if cows that are under condition, milk them once a day, and feed them twice a day. But when do you milk them? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, so I suppose, look, potentially this could be not a bone of contention, but some people have different views on it. But for me, and reading a bit about it, a lot of people would preferably milk in the evening time. So if they are going back into cubicles, they're going back in with an empty bag, they're going back in with an empty udder. So if you milk them in the evening time, they'll have an empty udder, they'll be going back into the cubicles with an empty udder, and there's less chance of infection building up as a result of that, and less stress on the cow as well. So feed them in the morning, don't milk them in the evening, and feed them obviously as usual, and go from there, So
cows are in by night, out by day, they get turned out with everything else. Then they get fed, obviously, they run through the paddock, they get fed, out for a day's graze, and then come in or milked, and they're in by night.
Yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, if they're out by day and out by day and out by night, it's probably irrelevant, Yeah, because they're obviously out on grass either. It's just for a hygiene purpose that they're probably better off milking them in the evening time as opposed to the morning time, and then obviously maybe upping their meal as well. Another thing you could do as well is if you do have a cohort of cows that are low body condition score, it might be best to try and isolate them from the rest of the main herd if you could at all, and buffer them and feed them up well, before breeding,
Bernard, we were on I suppose a very diverse range of cow types, over the 5 farms that we went to.
Yeah.
So we started with Montbelliards, we went to crossbreds, we went to Holstein Friesians, British Friesians, and we mixed then with kind of a good Holstein Friesian mix. But that has to be taken into account with body condition scoring as well.
Yeah, sure. I suppose when you're looking at the Montbelliards, I suppose traditionally they're a dual purpose breed, and with that they will have a certain level of fat cover that you just can't avoid. And then you go to your Holsteins, and they're notoriously going to have a thin skin anyway, They're just going to carry that little bit less fat cover than your Montbelliards, And your crossbreds are somewhere in the middle, So you have to take that into account as well.
So the body condition scoring is more subjective. Take the animal breed into consideration.
Yeah, it is an objective measure of the nutrient status of that cow in that moment in time. However, it is subjective as well. Like, you know, like John, you thought you were an expert there at body condition scoring, like, but I put you in your place, I think, fairly quick. And
Now we're talking. Now we are talking.
Right.
Here we go.
Just one
Here we go.
right. Bernard was cocksure. He was king of the castle. And he came up to me and he was like, John, just what would you give her now? I said, Bernard, 275. Anyways, next one 275. Bernard turned around to the group anyways and he announced, lads, 275, 275. I say, good man, Bernard, you're at it again. You're flying it. But anyways, it is very subjective. Like, you can have a row. But Bernard, one of the things I would say is get a fresh pair of eyes, because you can make. I think that's probably where people get great benefit out of you in your day-to-day job going on to a farm. Is you can give them maybe a reality check of the condition score of their animals.
of course, like some guys, you go out to their farm, they just have it in their head that this cow is just always fat and that's the way she should be, and you know that's probably incorrect. Like, you know, obviously there is genetically some cows will carry more condition than others, but yeah, it is better to get a fresh pair of eyes, because we can become quite biased in our views.
Yeah, exactly.
But another thing is, I suppose, it's not just good enough to do the body condition scoring just at breeding. Ideally, what we need to do is, if we start from within the calendar year, you want to do it at calving, you want to do it at breeding. Ideally, you want to do it at maybe 100 days in milk and 200 days in milk. You want to do that drying off, and then you're back to your calving again. So that is labour, that is time, does take time. But to be honest with you, it doesn't take a whole lot of time either. Like, it's just a matter of getting into a habit of doing it. Like, we waste enough time on doing other farming methods, like, you know.
Bernard, one of the things that, like, I suppose what sparked us into maybe getting in touch with yourself and reaching out, and you kindly agreed to give us a hand out, was the fact that we want to join up the agronomy, the animal health and the animal nutrition, because obviously the grass is the biggest part of animal nutrition. It's something that we work an awful lot with farmers on. But like that whole aspect of body condition score and treating it as, you know, an isolated incident that we must body condition score before we breed or maybe at dry off, but we really need to be taking a more holistic approach to it and monitoring. Is that fair to say? Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, it's all about monitoring. Like, you know, you have to collect that data and you have to go from there. Like, so look, as I said, during breeding, you want to have the body condition score at 2.75 and at calving maybe at 3.25, you know.
Bernard, when it comes down to body condition scoring, obviously you're the qualified guy, you're the vet. John O'Loughlin is actually the real expert that told you what to do, and Sean is on the end plate, right? You move from the end to the end.
James,
No, you're going okay, Sean. You're going okay. You know,
learner.
you weren't great, but you're going okay. But like, what I'd like to talk about now as well, what I saw you doing, which is absolutely amazing, a really quick test as well, really visual, which was locomotion scoring. That was superb.
Yeah, so locomotion scoring, what is locomotion scoring? It's viewing the animal and visually looking at the cow as she walks, and you want the cow to obviously not be lame. It's as simple as that, like, you know. And how do we do that? So we look at the animal and we look at a reference range from 1 to 5. 1 being very good, no lameness. 5 being extraordinarily lame and severe treatment needs to be given, you know. The arch back is a big thing, you know. So a cow, a score of 1, potentially maybe 2, would have a straight back, you know, absolutely flat, no arch whatsoever. When you start getting into the 2s and the 3s, and obviously the 4s and 5s, there's going to be a bit more of an arch in the back. When they start holding their legs, you're looking at 4 and 5. So like, if they're not putting significant weight on a certain limb touching the ground, you're going to have a 4 and a 5, like, you know. Look, anybody can pick out a 4 or 5. They're severely lame. It's those 2s that you're trying to pick out, you know, that are not too lame but still lame enough to get the hoof pair in and get that sorted before that 2 becomes a 3 or a 4, like, you know.
One of the things that I picked up from our discussion was that you said 60% of the weight of the animal whenever she's on her all fours is at the front of the animal, 40% is at the back.
Yeah.
And then on the back, 90% of the weight is on the outside hoof.
Yeah, well, 90% of the problems would potentially be on the outside claw, the lateral claw of the hind limbs, like, you know, whether that be an infectious or a non-infectious disease.
I was very fascinated with getting out to the field. Whenever farmers go and put out their cows to graze a paddock or whatever, they're shutting the gap they're going back, doing their jobs, coming back in the evening, collecting the animals from the field or whatever. We were actually there whenever they were grazing, whenever they were ruminating, whenever they were sitting down, looking at the behaviour of the animals. I was just really fascinated by it. And you talk about body condition scoring, locomotion, and seeing what percentage of the animals are chewing the cud or whatever. It was something different and something that we probably take for granted, that every animal is operating at 100%. You know, whenever you go out and look at them, they could potentially not be like.
Yeah, we don't look. We're all live busy lives, like, and if we probably don't examine the animals just in their own routine out on the grass from a day-to-day basis, like, and you do learn a lot when you do that as well, like, you know.
Like a prime example, we asked one of the farmers on the day, was there any signs of pica? And you went through the different potential signs that animals would be showing, and the farmer said no. But yet, whenever we went out, one of the cows was nearly had the bank.
We turned her back for 1 second, and there she was in the ditch there, and she was
chewing stones and licking outside,
chewing stones and picking away at them, like, you know. And pica, it's just the ingestion or the fascination, I suppose, with inanimate objects, you know, such as stones predominantly, you know, on the farm setting. And it was quite obvious to see that girl was she was mad for those stones, like, you know. So maybe we'll talk about more the next day, but it's just one thing that would spring to mind straight away is just a lack of phosphorus within the diet, you know.
Yeah, definitely, especially in light of breeding. But Bernard, I think the condition scoring is one, and especially in relation to late calvers, like, they have an awful tendency of just getting over fat.
So Bernard, we followed the cows out to the field.
Yeah.
We followed them back into the parlour.
Yeah.
We body condition scored them. Laneways, some of the roadways that we were on, you could walk on them in your bare feet.
Yeah, geez. The second farmer we were with on the Wednesday, he had AstroTurf and rubber mixed together for the first, I would say maybe 300 yards. And you would everyone knows what AstroTurf is like. You would walk on it with your socks on, like, you know. And it was, and he did note how much of a difference they walk on that comparison to the rest of his roadways, which were still very good. Like, the roadways were very straight, just the lie of the land. They were quite straight. There was no 90-degree bends on it, which doesn't tend to help a cow. They were very, very flat. There was no potential for dirt or puddles to build up, you know. So everything was good and clean. There was no build up of bad stones, big kind of ignorant stones that can cause a lot of damage, like, you know. So no, his roadways were quite impressive, like, you know. Look, when you're putting in roadways, it's infrastructure, isn't it, like, you know. So you're going to get the returns from it. It's not going to go away. It's there for pretty much ever. Like, you probably obviously have to top up on it. Like the first farmer on the Wednesday as well, I'd say he had just recently dusted that roadway as well, like, and again, it was so smooth to walk on as well, like, and it does make a difference. And both farmers both mentioned as well that they don't rush their cows as well, like, you know.
Yeah.
That they don't have a quad which is driving those slower cows out the back, driving them into the parlour or driving them into the paddock. They don't have a dog that's tormenting the cows and stressing them out. Like, it's all about lack of stress, but yet cow flow. You want to get them in and get them out of the parlour as soon as you can. The longer they're in the parlour or they're in the collecting yard, the less time they have, that less potential they have of grazing the field, like, you know.
Yeah, brilliant.
Lads, that was absolutely superb. And look, Bernard, it was a real great pleasure to have you with us during that week. Bernard, you'll be back again. So happy to have you involved in Grassland Agro as our consultant vet. I suppose my key takeaways: body condition scoring. Aim for that 2.75. The crush, it's the best place, lads, to put your hands on that animal, get to grips and feel it out. Locomotion scoring. The arch back is the greatest, earliest sign of all. We talk about rating a 1 versus a 5 being the worst, but the arch back is the first telltale sign. Roadways, where possible, we all understand it's not straightforward. Keep her straight, smooth bends, soft underfoot, no pressure or stress to the animal. Mind yourself out there. Farm smart, farm safe. Hey, thanks for listening to the Sod Pod. We hope you enjoyed it. To find out more, head over to www.grasslandagro.ie or check out our social channels: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn and YouTube. That's all for this episode. See you next time.